handling LGBTQ plus issues. So happy to see the Pride folks here. I also handle higher education, youth and collegiate outreach.
Awesome. I think we got everybody. So once again, welcome to FIU in DC. My name is Frank Gomez. I'll be your MC for this evening. This portion of the night will be live streamed to our audience who couldn't join us in person. And first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about the FIU Talent Lab here at FIU in DC. The Talent Lab provides a platform for the amazing FIU students, and as we heard from our students around the room, a truly interdisciplinary group that is studying and researching various fields come together here in our nation's capital to make real impact. Among the impact that the students make here in Washington, D.C., we've heard they intern not only in the legislative branch or executive agencies, but also with think tanks, non-governmental organizations, and other organizations here in Washington, D.C. And we want to applaud them tonight for completing their internship this semester. Later tonight, we're going to hear from our Hamilton Scholars. The Hamilton Scholars is a group of FIU Honors students who have interacted with FIU researchers, deans, faculty researchers, and professors to shine a light on the amazing work that FIU has been doing in health equity, resilience, environmental resilience, defense technologies, and other fields that make FIU a leader in as a public research university. We want to give a shout out to Moy, the student assistant, which has really helped our students, not only the Hamilton Scholars, but all the FIU interns throughout their time. And also a shout out to the rest of our FIU and DC staff. So please, a round of applause. Next, I'd like to call up Professor Charlene Stanberry. She has been leading the Hamilton Scholars cohort this semester as their professor for a few remarks.
Thank you, Frank. He is the best teaching assistant that you can have, ever. When I think about FIU in DC and the Talent Lab, I think of family. I think of it as my family. As I'm in DC, this is the little part of Miami that I get. So I'm very thankful to be able to be an adjunct professor for the Hamilton Scholars Program, which every semester, whoever comes up here to intern, I get a chance to teach their Washington, D.C. seminar course. It's very important to me because I remember being a young Hill staffer, not knowing anything that I was doing, and having all these questions about politics, policy, how does DC just work in general. And so I've been fortunate to serve as a resource to the Hamilton Scholars and the students to talk to them about how DC works. Also to help them in their internships, gaining the confidence when it comes to speaking with a member of Congress, speaking with an executive director of a think tank. The one thing that I've learned, and I always say this, particularly when I was on Capitol Hill, FIU has the best students around. And you can ask any congressional office, any trade association, any think tank, they're going to tell you when you get an FIU intern or fellow, you are getting the top talent that there is. So want to thank Carlos and Frank and all of the FIU and DC staff for all that you do to support our students. And I hope that you enjoy all the presentations that you will see. They are wonderful. They have been working on this the entire semester, and they have just given their heart and soul not only into their policy project, but also into where their internships are. So thank you, and we're excited to see what's to come and what they're going to show you tonight. Thank
you, Professor Stanberry. I also wanted to to give a shout out to the FIU Honors College Dean, Juan Carlos Espinoza. He was not able to join us tonight, but I did want to send his regards to the Hamilton Scholar cohort and to the wider FIU intern family. Up next, I'd like to welcome FIU Provost, Dr. Elizabeth Behar.
Thank you. Just so thrilled to be here with you this evening. Really, when we spend our days doing higher ed administration, and I know there's somebody who's got that in their future lined out, really, we talk about making sure that we can understand what academic excellence means, what research excellence means, and how that translates to impact, right? And on our campus and on campuses around the United States, we talk about student success. But here you are living it, whether you're part of the PSU fly-in, whether you're certainly, I'm so excited to be able to be here and hear the presentations and experience, right, the excitement of the presentations from our Hamilton scholars this evening. But really, we're really talking about actualizing what this experience and what the multitude of your experiences at FIU have been able to give. To our partners who are here with us this evening, thank you. Thank you for your mentorship. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for partnering with our FIU and DC team and our faculty, staff, and researchers back home to make sure that this can actually happen. We are so proud of the talent that we have and the fact that we can contribute to your own professional and personal actualization goals. That's really the height of what we can achieve, is making sure that you're doing that. I do want to stand here and say the only thing missing this evening is Ruth Hamilton herself, but I am in forever perpetual gratitude for her willingness to continue to serve the students of FIU through her generous gift. So thank you all. I really look forward to hearing from everyone this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Behar. So now we're going to begin the Hamilton Scholar presentations, and I'm going to go over a little bit of the housekeeping here as I prepare the first presentation. So each Hamilton Scholar is going to make their presentation, and then we're going to open it up to some brief questions. So as they're presenting, start thinking of which questions. We're going to limit them to a few questions for time. And first up, we have Leah Goodman.
Hello, everybody. Super grateful to be here today and to open up all of the incredible projects we're going to see from the rest of the Hamilton Scholars. So during my time here in the fall, I've been focusing on restoration and resiliency of coastal and wetland ecosystems. So as said before, my name is Leah, and I'm a senior at FIU, majoring in political science, minoring in environmental studies, and pursuing an undergraduate certificate in women's and gender studies. Now, I've been interning on Capitol Hill with Congressman Jared Moskowitz this fall, representing Florida's 23rd district, and it's been especially great for me because he's Florida's former director of emergency management, and what I'm really focusing on here is restoration for resilience in the face of climate change. Now, the United States was founded on our unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But without a healthy environment, these basic human rights wouldn't be possible. So that means to us here at Florida International and beyond that we have to keep on restoring Florida's beautiful treasure in North America's largest wetland subtropical ecosystem, the Everglades. Now, the Everglades has gone through drastic changes since the 1900s when agricultural development and urban growth came along. So we unfortunately only have 50% of the Everglades' original beauty today and 70% of its water flows lost. Now, we'll see here that the original flow of water came up north from the Kissimmee River down to Lake Okeechobee and then traveled south through the Everglades to reach Florida Bay. And on this side, this is how all of the canal and levees have broken this up and really deprived the ecosystem of fresh water. So the question remains, What can we do here at FIU to achieve environmental resilience through restoring the Florida Everglades in the face of climate change? And that is where our FIU Institute of Environment steps in, directed by Dr. Todd Krell. So for the past 30 years, FIU has been doing groundbreaking research in restoring and protecting the freshwater resources of the Everglades right in our own backyard. Now, we have groundbreaking cutting-edge technology, including crest water buoys scattered throughout the Biscayne Bay, and they work to test water quality, water salinity, and detect water contamination levels to predict how we can help species adapt and continue conservation efforts moving forward in the future. But none of these things would be possible without our incredible congregational delegation of Florida. So for that project you just saw, we thankfully had Congressman Schultz and Salazar get funding from NOAA to really give us the background in order to achieve the restoration impacts we've been having lately. And in terms of the environmental technology side, Congressman Wilson was really able to step through for us. So the importance of this issue is because the Everglades is an integral part of the state of Florida. It provides over 8 million people with clean drinking water, and it's a really sustainable solution to extreme events. So mangroves, a common shrub and plant located throughout the Everglades, absorbs the shocks of storm surges in face of floods and absorbs really high shocks of wind that come from hurricanes, two things that Florida is unfortunately prone to. And of course, a lot of things are about money, so it's a huge income for the state of Florida through jobs, tourism, and again, people who come to the beautiful Everglades National Park, which generates an incredible $150 million for the state of Florida, and within being a national park, gets to the federal government as well. So I had the privilege of helping to host November 14th science briefing and reception on applying adaptive management skills to coastal resilience projects, which is really just about us working annually right before November 15th South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force. And as we see here, we had Dr. Stephen Davis from the Everglades Foundation, brilliant panelists, and our 4 Everglades Fellows who are showing their great research projects. Now, we had many key players in the audience at this great event, including people from the Department of Interior, which is where the meeting took place, the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, the Everglades Foundation, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And this wouldn't be possible without our advocacy from the Everglades Caucus on Congress. And right in the middle from the U.S. Army Corps is Commander James Bloof, who was a special guest. Now, toward the future, what FIU is looking for is additional appropriations in fiscal year 2024 in order for us to have more testing capacity to assess our impacts of restoration projects and have more scientists on our board to continue making the impactful change we have been. And also on getting WRDA authorization, which really just gives the U.S. Army Corps the ability to fund and continue making more and more projects that, again, go in collaboration with scientists at our university. And the Everglades Caucus, as said before, has been doing great work for us, and we really look forward to working with them more in the near future. So thank you, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Hi. You're good, you're good. Yeah, no, that's so important. So working within the Institute of Environment, we had the Department of Interior located Restoration Task Force meeting on November 15th, where we were really able to then assess our impacts with tribal, local, state, and federal governments. So that was a pretty wonderful thing. And within that slide, there was Ron Bergeron, and he's a representative from Miccosukee tribes, and he's on the board of South Florida Water Management District. So luckily we have so much collaboration, especially when it comes to holistic restoration, because that's so important within Everglades resilience. So thank you for that. You guys are speechless. Thank you. But yeah.
Please use the mic thing.
So my question is, you gave us some wonderful information, and I really love what you've done with your policy project. Where do you think this goes from here? Especially, like, my questions are very specific to students that may not know what actions to be taking, but what can we do to get more involved in this movement? What actions and what policies do you want to see in place?
Yeah, well, speaking first in the topic of FIU, something incredible that I found here at the being a Hamilton Scholar is that during the time of this Everglades event, we actually had an Everglades fly-in come in from FIU, and it was multidisciplinary, just students from all different backgrounds and majors who wanted to learn more about the environment and had the incredible opportunity to come here and be so involved in what we had going that entire week. I would say FIU was just at the forefront of public research. There's a lot of really cool things to get involved with within the Institute of Environment themselves. Before I was actually on the environmental track, I was able to reach out to marine centers there and just ask about their research opportunities. And I wound up doing this really interesting kind of 4-month-long thing post classes for crab mariculture and farming. So there's a lot of really nice opportunities out there that I guess you don't really know unless you ask. So I would say it's really awesome to just reach out and try to get involved in that way. But moving forward from here, I really look forward to continuing working with FIU's Institute of Environment because sea level rise is such a prevalent issue for us in Florida. I mean, we're a red spot here in Miami. So I think that the more testing capacity is said there that we get, the more insight we'll have into how we can continue making restoration efforts by like targeting exactly what we have to do through the kind of, I guess, technology we're getting access to and projects we're able to do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Leah. And next up, I'd like to call up Robbie for her presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Ravi and I'm super excited to present to you all my Hamilton Scholars Project, which revolves around health. Okay, so a little bit about me. I am currently majoring in health administration at FIU. I'm minoring in English and studying a few other things at the university. I have a wide variety of passions and interests, but the one that I want to focus on right now is health. Trying to promote the health and well-being of the people in my community and just people in general is just very important because I've seen firsthand the difference that it makes when people have access or they don't have access to the resources necessary for them to take care of their health. Currently, I'm interning at the office of Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, which has been an amazing experience because I've gotten more familiar with the legislative process. I've got to meet amazing people, and I've also gotten to see what other opportunities exist for me to find, a career that intersects health and advocacy. So for my project, my client is FIU's Population Health Initiative, which I will explain a little bit more in just a minute. And these are some of the people working in the health initiative that are spearheading the vision and doing important work. So FIU's Population Health Initiative is a way that FIU sees a lot of the health crises that are going on in South Florida and being really proactive about it by providing an avenue for different experts across disciplines and health to come together and find solutions to some of the problems that we see and to do research, whether it's about health economics, access within systems, chronic diseases, or so on. So what we're trying to do is spread awareness about FIU's Population Health Initiative and everything that we're doing regarding health. And we're trying to raise awareness through our launch event and continue conversations because we want to try to get more resources and more funding so that the researchers and experts in these topics can continue doing the important work. I was reading a stat that about 1 in 9 Americans stated that they had difficulty paying their medical expenses, and then 1 in 5 of Americans have uninsured Americans have difficulty paying their expenses. And that's a problem. People should be able to afford their health care. And then also this year, we saw record-breaking heat over the summer, which is really a danger for a lot of people, especially if they're doing a job like farming or they're working outdoors. And within Broward County this year, we also saw a lot of flooding that, was that displaced people, which highlights how climate also affects health. So these are all issues that we want to be paying attention to and we want to be combating. And FIU's Population Health Initiative is doing just that. So we want to make sure that we're raising awareness about the work that we're doing. So these are some of the key players that are doing important work as it pertains to health and the climate and the environment, such as the Office of Climate Change and Health Equity within HHS, among others. We also want to get the attention of key players on the subcommittees of health within the House and Senate side. So some of the things that I've been doing to kind of work towards this issue is meeting with congressional staffers alongside the Dean of College of Nursing and Health Sciences, promoting FIU, speaking about what we're doing and talking about the Population Health Initiative. Throughout my internship, I've also been able to do some health legislation research and look into bills, which provided me with insight about what exactly is going on in Congress that is trying to combat these different health issues. Most recently, I did some background on a bill that talked about co-paying and addressed co-paying accumulators. So next up, I want to continue doing more research and outreach to provide avenues for experts to come together. And I'm going to be working on hosting an event for FIU Population Health Initiative, which is going to be talking about climate and health, and that'll be taking place sometime early next year. And beyond that, we just want to continue having these continued conversations with our key players, with stakeholders, with the community, and do everything that we can to promote the health and well-being of everyone and to find the solutions to the problems that we are seeing every day. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Okay. Hello, that was such a lovely presentation. So my question for you is, I know that you really talked about like the relationship between environment and health. So are there any particular topics that you have interested in? Like I know, for example, like, if you have food that's high sugar-based content, that can increase chronic diseases like obesity and diabetes. So like, which ones do you think primarily we should focus on in South Florida, or what are you passionate about?
Personally, when I think about health, and I just think about everything that impacts people's health. But one thing that really stands out to me is like affordability. And I mean this in multiple ways. Like when people when people are maybe on the poverty line, then they might not have the money that they need to get nutritious meals. Or like if someone is coming from a household where like there's a single mother and they're working all day, they may not be able to provide those nutrition meals, and that can also be a health concern. And then additionally, when people cannot afford their medical bills or, with insurance, there's always something with insurance and it's really confusing and no one knows how to figure it out. And so that can also impact people's health. But honestly, anything that just impacts the way that people can live healthily is something that is important to me. Okay.
Thank you for this presentation. I am an intern with, Women's Fund Miami-Dade, and we do a lot of research on how the climate, especially in South Florida, affects women. So just based off of that, and you did say that you wanted to do an event of some sort, and I don't know if it's here or in Miami, but if it is in Miami, I do want to know, are you interested in collaborating with organizations that are already, spearheading that research and trying to get the information out there?
So the event will be taking place here in Washington, D.C., but I will be more than happy to maybe talk to you and we can talk with Carlos or something afterwards to see how we can collaborate for this and other things that we're doing, because this is really important. It's really important that people have access to health care and just are able to live a healthy life. So if there are people that are already doing this important work, then we definitely want to collaborate with them.
Thank you, Robbie. And up next, I'd like to call up Natalie.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to talk to you about my project today, which, as you can see from this title screen, is all about advocacy and human rights. Before we dive into the bulk of that, I think it's important that you know a little bit more about myself. So, hi, I'm Natalie. I'm a senior at Florida International University studying political science and international relations, with really a focus on human rights and law. And in DC for the past year, I've been interning with the Human Rights Campaign as their legal policy intern. So at HRC, one of my biggest projects has to do with the Municipal Equality Index. And the Municipal Equality Index is basically the only nationwide assessment of laws, policies, and services that rate municipalities and cities based on how LGBTQ plus friendly they are. So basically, the MEI is a digital database of cities. And this year, we rated 506 cities, which some of them were in Florida. And I think this is really cool because Miami was actually one of only 9 cities in Florida to receive a perfect score. Now, diving back into my project, South Florida is a mixing pot of cultures, and many people within this community are facing deportation and lengthy legal battles, specifically in Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. So many of these individuals come to the United States seeking asylum or temporary protected status, otherwise known as TPS. And TPS is basically a humanitarian immigration relief program in which a host country, in this case the United States, offers kind of a temporary status that protects individuals and lets them stay in the country because of excruciating circumstances. So think environmental disaster or other human rights violations. But many of these individuals are either not receiving TPS or facing way too long of a waiting time. So a real-world example of this can be seen in the case of Camila Diaz-Cordova, who was a 29-year-old transgender woman from El Salvador. Now, she came to the United States seeking asylum, but was turned away and not granted TPS. So she was deported back to El Salvador, where she was eventually murdered. So this shows one instance in which the immigration system failed someone that it was supposed to protect. So the Carlos A. Costa Immigration and Human Rights Clinic at FIU Law, as well as its director, Professor Juan Carlos Gomez, are working to address this issue head on. So the Carlos A. Costa Immigration and Human Rights Clinic basically works to represent low-income immigrant clients, and most of the time these cases are represented within the confines of detention centers, which is specifically important because this is an unfamiliar and often dangerous area in which these individuals are placed into, and a lot of them are just seeking help and running away from issues that they're encountering in their home country. So what are we asking? Well, we're asking to increase exposure as well as to include FIU in the national dialogue. So this means creating FIU as a partner to various national organizations, whether that be federal or nonprofit. And this is a way of kind of advocating for the clinic because it's important that collaboration does exist. So here are some key players. We have the Department of Homeland Security, the Human Rights Campaign, specifically the Department of Global Partnerships, as well as some committees, whether on the House and Senate side. And some of these partnerships are already starting. So in early November, I had the privilege of hosting an event between my client, Professor Juan Carlos Gomez, CABA, which is the crowd, and then Dr. Catherine Newling, who is the director of the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor at the State Department. And basically at this event, we were able to host kind of a panel in which we talked about the human rights issues taking place in Guatemala. Now, Guatemala is specifically an interesting case because many individuals in that country are facing disappearances or getting forcefully removed from the country because of not being able to speak out against the authoritarian regime. Now, this was really cool because Kaba, after hearing Carlos Gomez talk about the issues that were happening within the clinic, really expressed interest in working on the cases pro bono. Now, this is really important because a lot of the times the cases that we're working towards were oversaturated, and not all of them can get the attention that they deserve. So what's next? Well, in the future, the hope is that through this advocacy, the clinic could partner with organizations in DC to work towards pressing human rights matters. Now, this can include hosting events, whether that be, again, in FIU in DC or in Miami, and also one-on-one meetings. So meeting with members of the Human Rights Campaign, or meeting with people of part of the committees that we talked about. So with that being said, thank you all for listening to this presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I love questions, but amazing presentation. Goes right up one of my biggest passions. I'm also an IR major, so I just wanted to say that when looking to expand, have you ever looked into partnering or looping in the Rainbow Railroad? It's a international nonprofit that currently has around 13 to 15,000 applications every year for LGBTQ asylum seekers and refugees. They aren't based in DC, they're based in New York City, but I was just curious, they are the largest nonprofit in the world that caters to the LGBTQ community. So I thought it could be I
actually wasn't entirely familiar with them. Thank you for bringing it up. I think it's important for collaborations to happen to anyone that's willing to work on it, because the more voices that we have, the more the goal is amplified. So I think that would be an amazing thing, maybe host an event, whether it be, virtually or whatnot, to kind of maybe create that partnership, because the whole point is to get FIU on that center and really get us connected to as many people as possible.
Well, we'll definitely talk.
Yeah, we will.
Hi, Natalie. Great presentation. Such a great topic. So in Congresswoman Frederica Wilson's district office, every other call is about immigration and the wait times in immigration, so much so that we decided to write a letter to DHS Secretary Mayorkas about that. And from our research, we found that one, there's a quota met for processing times, and half of that is because they do a random selection. So let's say you apply in January and I just applied yesterday. There's a possibility that I will get processed first before someone that applied in January. So my question to you is, from your research, what do you think should be changed about this processing time? Or do you think it should be changed?
Yeah, I think any system that isn't serving the people that it's supposed to help should be tweaked, or at least made better. When it comes to that specific thing, I think the random draw can be a little problematic at times. Maybe looking at maybe doing it by order or by what issue you're facing, because some people cannot go back because they risk violence or could potentially face death if they do return back to their country. I think that's a really important thing to consider, but really it just comes down to making that system more efficient and getting it to work better so that it actually serves the communities that are in most need.
Thank you, Natalie. Great presentation. Next up, I'd like to call up Kiyomi for her presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kiyomi, and I'll be introducing myself in 1 minute, but I first wanted to preface my presentation by asking one quick question to the audience here in the room today. I wanted to ask everyone, please raise your hand if you've ever received any sort of federal financial aid. Wow, that's a good majority of this room. Obviously, we represent Miami, but also just the community here in DC that chose to support us today, but that's great to hear. So my name is Kiyomi Cabral. I am a senior, like I mentioned in my previous introduction, graduating in 1 week, majoring in international relations and global education studies. And I'm here interning in DC for my second time at the United States Agency for International Development, interning for their Niger Foreign Office, where I've been able to help in a various different offices, technical offices, but more specifically, I've chosen to focus on the education office. And that's relevant because I, as a Hamilton Scholar, chose to focus on higher education, but more specifically, federal financial funding for master's students in particular. So throughout my research, I found that 21.2 million students in the US as of 2021 are in pursuit of a master's degree. And in FIU, we currently have 10,000 students approximately that are pursuing a master's degree. And this is important because it shows that a lot of our nation is trying to pursue that, graduate level education past your traditional undergrad degree. And in my research, I also found that there's not much funding for these master's students, despite the fact that they're still trying to pursue a higher education. And so the closest thing I did find in terms of federal financial funding is the Pell Grant, which most of us may be familiar with, and that has funded a lot of our educations, but apparently only 1/3 of the US receives a Pell Grant. And in FIU, the biggest number that I found was 48% of our students actually receive it. So approximately half. And I believe that speaks volumes to the types of students that we have, not only in terms of what FIU is able to provide for our students in terms of providing that access, but also just promoting those low-income students to come and receive a higher education and still succeed despite the limitations that they may have in their finances. And so obviously my client is FIU, proud. And this is important because, as I mentioned, about 50% of our undergraduate students receive a Pell Grant for undergrad. So that means that if we would want these students to move forward and move up into a master's degree, this is a very important topic to address. And then more broadly, I also believe that our biggest client overall is any student trying to pursue a master's degree in the United States of America. So some of the key players that I identified within my research are those in government, such as the Senate and House committees on education, which tackle this issue head on, but also more specifically in the executive branch, the Department of Education. And I want to bring attention to this in particular because I was actually able to very excitedly meet James Cavall, the Undersecretary of Higher Education, throughout my research and my project. I actually met him with our FIU president, Kenneth A. Jussel, so that was a very big moment for me. But we were able to discuss a lot of these topics in which FIU is taking a lead on, and one of those being our close to 50% of students receiving that Pell Grant. And I believe that conversation really shaped the way I viewed this project because it helped me realize, this is something that really hits home for me as an FIU student, but also anyone who attends FIU or anyone from South Florida in general, because that is a resource that we have. And I also identified a non-governmental agency or organization, the Hispanic Serving Research Universities, which FIU is proudly a part of as well, who does address these issues in their advocacy. So where we are, currently a lot of our representatives in Congress have tried to address this issue in a variety of ways, mostly by extending that Pell Grant that we've been discussing into a sort of master's level that master's students will be able to attain. But unfortunately, it hasn't really come to fruition in any way, and they haven't really been able to succeed in achieving that. However, what is FIU going to do about it? Well, throughout my research, I found that the best possible way to address this is not by throwing another piece of legislation on the floor. Obviously, that hasn't worked before. Maybe if things change politically, it might happen. But I believe the best way forward, something different, is not just addressing it in the legislation, but maybe in our national budget. I feel like if we do that, it'll be, a gradual way. We can do it in a gradual way, but I believe it'll help bring that movement forward and maybe facilitate any legislation that comes about in the future. But by providing that in the national budget, it might be able to move it forward a little bit quicker rather than, waiting for this bill to take place and be voted on. And yeah, thank you so much. Any questions? Yes.
Great presentation. Just really quickly, if you can touch about what the Hispanic Serving Research Institute is doing and what initiatives they're doing to help us in that way.
Yeah, so I was actually able to come up last spring and advocate on behalf of the Hispanic Serving Research University Alliance that we are a part of with other student government associations that are also a part of that alliance. And they are tackling this issue, but not necessarily for master's students per se. They're trying to address it more in terms of the PhD graduate level education programs. They're trying to promote more Hispanic participation in that. I'm not too sure if they're addressing funding for it, but I can look back and let you know later. But yeah, I know that they are working towards promoting more graduate level education for minority students, particularly low income. And obviously the Hispanic is in the name, so Latinos is their focus, but pretty much anyone in general. So thank you. All right.
Thanks, Kiyomi. Next up, I'd like to call up Rafael for his presentation.
Thank you, sir. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I'll be doing my presentation on my project, which is on the use of artificial intelligence in small businesses, more specifically on the consulting services that are being given to small business owners by the Small Business Development Centers in regards to artificial intelligence. So before we start with the project, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Rafael Centeno. I was born and raised in Venezuela. Currently, I'm a senior at Florida International, majoring in international business. I am also a student of the Honors College, and currently, as a part of the Hamilton Scholars Program, I am interning at the Washington International Trade Association. Some of the key terms that you're going to be hearing repeatedly throughout this conversation are SBCD, or SBDC, which stands for Small Business Development Center. We have the SBA, which is the Small Business Administration, and then we also have the term small business, which identifies businesses that are considered smaller than regular corporations because of how many employees they have, the level of revenue they have, and the industry in which they developed. My client, more specifically in this project, will be the FIU Small Business Development Center. They provide services to small business owners in the areas of Miami-Dade County and Monroe County in South Florida, giving them consulting in the areas of business development, how to grow their businesses, mostly in business finance and market outreach. The goal of this project will be mainly the budget allocation in order to create a program to give consulting services in the area of artificial intelligence to small businesses, as well as the development of a standard industry certification in the area of artificial intelligence as well, so that more small business owners can have more knowledge about this. You might be wondering why we should do this. Well, you should know that 99.8% of all businesses in the state of Florida are considered small businesses, which means that they're the backbone of our economy in the state. You might have also noticed that in the past 2 years, we've had a quick rise of the use of artificial intelligence, both in private life as well as in businesses. More businesses have adapted artificial intelligence into their business operations. But small businesses are usually at a disadvantage because of their level of income, how many employees they have. They usually have less resources and knowledge on how to adapt these technologies into their operations. And how will we be doing this? We will be planning a meeting with the FIU SBDC directives, as well as the SBA representatives that would be interested in this program, as well as proposing to them a pilot project in which FIU will be providing this consulting services to small business owners on how to adapt AI into their operations. Some of the key players that I have identified that would play a role here would be the Department of Commerce, as well as the Small Business Administration and the respective small business committees in the House and the Senate. currently in the world of AI, it's always developing. We had a recent executive order from the White House on how businesses adapt AI into their operations. And one of their goals is actually supporting competition and innovation by creating a fair AI ecosystem in which businesses can thrive, as well as giving small business owners the opportunity to market and make profit out of adapting this artificial intelligence into their operations. What are the next steps? Well, first of all, there will be an event in Miami the next month where they'll be launching BizGap, which is the Business Growth and Acceleration Program, which was created actually thanks to a budget allocated to FIU, thanks to Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar, a budget of $650,000 to create this program, which will be giving consulting services from the FIU Small Business Development Center on themes such as financial literacy, market outreach, as well as government contracting. And as mentioned before, we would be working on a proposal meeting to SBA on what this project should be looking like in order to provide more services to small business owners on how to use AI and have more benefits from it. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
First of all, great presentation. I'm curious for your proposal meeting, what the content of that will be. Like, are you guys going to be covering ethics, intentionally centering like Black and brown small businesses? I think that's really like a hot topic if we're talking about Miami, or if you're like thinking about developing those strategies going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the proposal would definitely contain both the benefits of what AI brings into businesses and small businesses more specifically, as well as kind of the disadvantages that it would have if businesses don't adapt to this trend fast enough. It's an ever-evolving theme, and with time, more and more businesses tend to adapt to this new technology. So we want to make sure that small businesses don't fall behind. We also would keep in mind that since this is in South Florida, when I spoke with the representative of the FIU SBDC, he mentioned that they provide services both in Spanish as in English and also in Creole. This is an important topic that we would also want to mention, since we don't really know how AI services change depending on the language that you use it in. So you might be familiar with a lot of the business owners in South Florida conduct business in Spanish. It's something that is pretty normal there. And we want to make sure that they have the same opportunities that, a person using AI in English would.
What type of AI usage are you talking about when you talk about AI use in terms of the business sector?
Yeah, well, definitely that could be a very long response, just because depending on the size of the business, they would have different resources. Speaking of smaller businesses, it's mostly generative AI that they would be able to use. That's the type of AI that has become the most popular in the past year, I would say. Recently, I actually attended a workshop on AI in small businesses by the FIU SBDC, and they taught business owners how to use ChatGPT to create prompts or to fix simple problems in them. Obviously, by enhancing this type of consulting services, they would go more in depth on how that would work. But some of the ways that you could use AI in your business could help you with your inventory. They could help you be more efficient overall with your operations.
So kind of similar to that, is there any specific success stories that you've seen in South Florida of small businesses incorporating AI, and what does that look like?
That is actually what we will be looking for with this project. I currently don't know of any small businesses that, thanks to AI, have made a difference, we could say. We want to prevent that they don't. We want to prevent that they fall behind, and we want to prevent that bigger corporations have that kind of step ahead, and that they stay relevant in their communities. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you, Rafael. And next, I'd like to call up Ness for their presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time today. I'm very excited to share with you my project on transgender health disparities. And I'm excited not only as a member of this semester's cohort, but also as the first, and hopefully not the last, transgender Hamilton Scholar. So this project is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm just going to dive right in. So as I mentioned before, my name is Ness Cruz. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. I'm currently a junior at FIU, majoring in international relations with a minor in education. And I'm also the vice president of the Pride Student Union, who is joining us here today. And I interned this semester at the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute, which I think in my advocacy work on this campus and beyond, I think I've definitely developed more logistic skills to kind of back up the vision, which I'm really appreciated to Chile and their team for that. Before we get into the bulk of my presentation, I want to run through some terms that are going to be important to know. I'm going to be tossing them around. First and foremost is transgender health disparities. And to understand that concept, we really only have to understand the phrases health disparities. And these are preventable dispositions to health issues or health access issues that are caused by socioeconomic disadvantages. And in the case of transgender individuals, these are health disparities that arise from the transgender identity. Gender affirming care. This is one that you might think you know, but it's a little bit of a broader definition. So gender affirming care could actually be a lot of things. So if you're wearing a suit right now, or if you're wearing a dress right now, if you have makeup on, or if you have a fresh haircut, those are all forms of gender affirming care. In the medical sense, a lot of the time what we're talking about is hormone replacement therapy. Hormone replacement treatment, and this can include taking testosterone, estrogen. In the case of younger individuals that go through those channels, you can do hormone blockers, which kind of put puberty on pause, totally reversible, by the way. And then the last term is going to be intersectionality. This is a phrase that was coined by a Black female scholar, Kimberly Crenshaw, and essentially it's the understanding of the observation that when individuals have multiple marginalized identities, for example, myself, I'm transgender and Afro-Latin, that changes your experience with the world and how different forms of discrimination affect you and how you interact with the world around us. My client for this project was CRUSADA, the Center for Research on U.S. Latino HIV, AIDS, and Drug Abuse, as well as the Temple College of Public Health and Social Work. I was actually connected to this fantastic researcher, Daniel Jimenez, who does great work in minority stress theory and transgender equity, transgender health equity for particularly transgender women of color, who are one of the biggest groups of disadvantage in the healthcare system, workforce, etc. And our ask was really to connect university and federal actors to discuss the issue of transgender health disparities and to raise awareness and funding opportunities for our researchers at our university that are doing this work. And then we wanted to discuss the importance of legislative initiatives that advocate for health equity as well. I unfortunately don't have time to go over all these statistics, but as you can see, the why is pretty big. One thing I will point out is that transgender populations face an increased likelihood of developing things like cardiovascular disease, asthma, HIV, diabetes, so on and so forth. But as you can see right here, in the CAP survey for LGBTQI adults in 2020, 1 in 2, and 60% of those were respondents of color, reported discriminations at the hand of a health provider. And the connection here is that these individuals are already being predispositioned to these health issues and then are facing further barriers and avoiding healthcare in fear of discrimination. So these are some of the notable legislation that we kind of went over in our discussion. This is the Transgender Bill of Rights, which would basically codify rights for transgender people in multiple public spaces, so the workforce, healthcare, and then we have the Gender Affirming Care Act, which is also spearheaded by Senator Markey, which would allocate $25 million annually to the NIH and CDC for research in regard to gender affirming care and the impact of those barriers on health. These are our panelists that we invited. We had obviously Daniel from Cruzada, Tara Wilson from Senator Markey's office, and Jay Egler from CAP, and then we had our Pride student cohort who definitely made this possible. And we also set up a meeting with Adrian Schenker from HHS to discuss LGBTQI health equity. And again, these are our actors that I mentioned before. And our panel discussion actually happened today, so I'm going to show you some pictures. This is our lovely panelists. This is Jay Igler. This is Tara Wilson, Daniel Jimenez, our wonderful cohort. We had a really productive conversation on just all of the intricacies of transgender health disparity and any other like questions and curiosities of our students. And then this is us with Adrian Schenker, and we had a very productive conversation on kind of the federal level of things and sort of the work that they're doing over at HHS for transgender health equity. So thank you all, and I'll take any questions. Any questions?
Well, first of all, that was a great presentation. My question is, what are some of the immediate, or not immediate, but what changes would you like to see in the near future that would be moving toward the goal of your project?
Well, for one, we would love to look into funding opportunities for our researchers like Daniel. They're actually pretty far and few in between on this topic particularly, so we want to definitely not only push forward research that already exists, but encourage others that might potentially want to work on this subject, this issue themselves in the future. And honestly, the big underline in this is education, education, education. Having these dialogues more often, people understanding what these terms mean. I mean, raise your hand if before this you knew that gender-affirming care could be a haircut. And I think the fact that that's under 50% of the room is a problem. A lot of people are not really understanding of like what we mean when we say like trans health disparity. What we're talking about when we're like talking about these different issues, and particularly our healthcare providers like have no idea how they're not properly trained on treating transgender individuals. So to kind of rid ourselves of that isolation, we have to continue to have these conversations so we can develop that curriculum. We can develop those conversations.
We talked a lot today in the cohort about the bill that passed in Florida, which actually legalized discrimination in the healthcare sector against the LGBTQ community, particularly the transgender communities. So my question is, how important do you think the Equality Act is in this upcoming legislative session, as well as in the years coming?
Well, I mean, I think this was brought up a little bit earlier in our discussion with HHS and on the Hill, and I think at some point during the Obama administration, we all kind of forgot about queer rights. We got marriage, and so that's all we needed. And I think in the past legislative sessions, it's become like increasingly apparent that that isn't necessarily enough. And I think through the Equality Act, by like codifying these rights, by like spelling them out and like saying what they are and what they look like for queer and transgender individuals is extremely important, because the legislation that we have thus far is not only anti-trans, anti-queer, but it's extremely vague in wording. So we don't even have like a lot of understanding of how they'll be, totally like inactive per office, and this kind of inconsistency is extremely dangerous. Not only on the end of like some people won't be receiving life-saving care, whether that be gender affirming or otherwise, but also because of the fact that this is going to be affecting more than the transgender community. There's health disparities bleed into other intersectional identities. Women of color will be seeing the impact of this. And I think that's something that we don't really understand when we're talking about these issues. So to make a long and short of my answer, I think it's extremely important, and I would encourage you all to look into the Equality Act yourself and find a way to plug in and advocate for that.
Great job. Thank you, Ness. Next up, we have Alexandra.
So hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Howard and I'm double majoring in political science and digital communications and media, and I'm doing 2 internships this semester, the first of which is with the United States Senate Committee on the Budget and FIU's Kaplan News, which is our student media. And my policy presentation is about bridge transportation and the importance about diversifying the transportation workforce. So my client in this project is Dr. Adoroid Azizi Zamini, and he is one of FIU's professors for the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And in 2015, he was actually the recipient for the White House's Transportation Champion of Change. And he is such an important part of this project because he has done incredible research with FIU to make bridges more restoration in our nation. So where are we now? There are more than 250,000 bridges in the United States that are nearing their 50-year design lifespan, and over 56,000 are in poor condition. And that's according to the American Society of Civil Engineers. And actually, in early September, I was able to host an event with the Build Strong Coalition to bring awareness to this issue and bring together federal government employees and people working in the private sector to make them know that their collaboration and partnership is needed in order to make better bridges in our country. And FIU is actually being a pioneer in that and asking for $5 million in this initiative to create more sturdy, durable bridges in our nation. And we are collaborating with other universities to merge our state-of-the-art facilities to make this happen. So in this proposal, what are our asks? So in terms of bridge technologies, one of the first things that we need to do is scan current bridges and identify what bridge models and materials that we need to make this happen. And another thing we need to do is create data-driven assessments and collaborate that in the conjunction with artificial intelligence to easily identify them. But the most important thing we need to do out of all of this is make sure that we're doing this in a sustainable and cost-effective way. And for our government, our key players that are involved in this proposal, not all representatives are listed in the corner, but we have Frederico Wilson, Carlos Jimenez, Maria Elvira Salazar, and Debbie Wasserman Soltz, who have already signed onto this proposal, which is amazing in itself. And this proposal is going to the offices of the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, and the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transportation, Dr. Robert Hampshire. And in other key players, in terms of corporate stakeholders, one of the biggest that have been involved in this proposal is CXS Transportation, which involves railroads, and we also have federal agencies such as NIST and others. So we need to ask, how can we continue diversifying the transportation workforce? And this is really important in terms of our next steps. So the White House in 2021 made an executive order to make sure that diversity is being implemented in federal agencies. And I truly believe this needs to be expanded onto small businesses and private enterprises, because if we don't have people with different perspectives and different experiences, we can't make better work. And FIU is also taking steps in that direction with the Panther to Panther Mentor Collective. And I think this is so important in terms of getting more women in this male-dominated field, because if more women can have a mentor who looks like them, who can identify with their struggles in this engineering degree, I feel like that could be a really good step. And also, FIU is giving a lot of scholarships in terms of getting minorities and people with disabilities. And again, I think this is so important in this male-dominated workforce to get more people involved in the transportation field. Thank you. Any questions?
So, I mean, maybe it's a little bit too early to know any about this, but have you seen any impact from the passage of the infrastructure bills in the last few years? I mean, there's been like massive amounts of spending. Has that had any impact positively on your issue specifically?
So I would really love to dive into that more, because I know at the U.S. Senate Budget Committee, we're always talking about how transportation can become better. And especially, I think, in South Florida, we've been seeing that in terms of bridges. And other ways in infrastructure. So I would love to dive into that and give you a better answer. Okay.
Thank you, Alexandra. And next up, Bella.
Don't worry, guys. I'm the last one, so. Okay. So, my name is Bella. I'm a senior at FIU, and I'm graduating in about 2 weeks. I'm studying a BA in International Relations, a minor in Sociology and Anthropology, and I'm doing 2 certificates, one in Latin American Caribbean Studies and another in Labor Studies. I'm currently a research intern at the American Foreign Policy Council, and my interest areas throughout my time at FIU have been drug trafficking and Chinese influence in Latin America. Okay, so did you guys know that within recent years, Mexican criminal organizations have been selling illegal wildlife products to Chinese traders in return for fentanyl and methamphetamine, which is then trafficked to the United States? And in 2022, there have been over 100,000 reported fentanyl-related deaths in the United States. Because I did not know that until I started reading the research published by FIU Security Research Hub, which is a part of the Jack D. Gordon Institute for Public Policy Security Research. So basically what this is it is a virtual research platform within FIU, and it brings together open source research on the most crucial security matters that are facing Latin America today, right in our backyard. So the Security Research Hub was created in collaboration with the U.S. Southern Command and prioritizes research topics like transnational criminal organizations, health disparities, migration crises, natural disasters, and the most popular topic in DC right now, which is the Great Power Competition. So the project that I took on this semester was I helped host the event Triad Snakeheads and Flying Money. And what this event did is that it showcased the newly published research within the Security Research Hub, specifically by 2 researchers named Leyland Lazarus and Alexander Goxo. What this research did is that it showcased current Chinese activities in Latin America, more specifically on fentanyl trafficking, illegal wildlife trade, and money laundering within the region, and how that affects the United States in the status quo. They showcased their research, they had a panel, there were very key political figures and organizations attending this event. We had members from USAID, we had members from Florida Congress, we actually had Congressman Diaz-Balart come here and give his opening remarks at this event. We also had scholars and students in the area that were just generally interested in learning about this crucial matter that we are facing in the status quo. Oh, and one of my duties in putting together this event was kind of getting some of the key players to come here. Like a week before this event, I attended a separate event at the Peruvian Embassy where I ran into Congressman Carlos Jimenez. We had a chat about the Security Research Hub initiatives, and he was able to send some of his staff to attend this event. So why does the Security Research Hub matter? So the Security Research Hub brings together a bunch of information that the public is not really going to get otherwise. Especially here in DC, like any think tank or organization or even political figure, even the ones in Florida, Latin America is not at the top of their political agenda. And that's pretty bad given the fact that they are literally in our backyard. So the Security Research Hub brings together information for the public to see, and it shows why this is important and why the public should care and why political figures and organizations should take matter into their own hands to create policies to mitigate these issues. So another important thing that Security Research Hub does is they have dashboards. And this is just a screenshot of the dashboard, one of the dashboards. This is on Chinese activities in Latin America. So usually when you look at the dashboards, on the left side, you'll see articles about like current investments or activities in the status quo. And then on the right side is an actual like interactive map. So these dashboards visualize data aggregate sets to where the public and literally anyone can go onto this and search what China is doing in Colombia and Peru and Ecuador. You can click any of these icons. Like for example, if I were to click here in Managua, it'll show up all of like the Chinese data that's being invested into Nicaragua, the money that's being invested, what companies are there, et cetera, et cetera. it's a long list. There's also dashboards on lithium mining and the lithium triangle, which composes of Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. And there's one on Central America border security. And also, if you're an international relations student, this is really helpful because since it's coming from FIU, all this information is like valid, and you can just go on to here, click anything you want, and you have like evidence for your latest research project. So the goals for what I want to see happen with the Security Research Hub is I want to raise awareness, create new partnerships, and expand reach within the department. So some of the key players within the Security Research Hub, we have the Department of Defense. As I mentioned earlier, the Security Research Hub was created in collaboration with the U.S. Southern Command, which is underneath the Department of Defense. We do have members of the House of Foreign Affairs Committee, specifically in the Subcommittee of Western Hemisphere Relations. Congresswoman Salazar, she is a strong supporter of FIU and FIU Security Research Hub. I actually was also able to attend the congressional hearing on Chinese influence in Latin America, where we were able to speak about the Security Research Hub initiatives. However, we would like to expand its reach to the Department of State to get more funding so that we can increase FIU security research initiatives, as well as a select committee on the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, so the next steps. Just like how you guys in PSU are here on a fly-in, I would also like to expand fly-ins to incorporate the intelligence fellows that are part of the JGI Institute. Intelligence fellows are students at FIU, undergrad and grad, that are just trying to get into the intelligence field. So when they come here, they can meet with different think tanks that are heavily security-based. They can tour departments like the Pentagon. They can meet congressional offices and representatives. The organization that I work at, the American Foreign Policy Council, they're very heavily security-based. I'm the third FIU student to intern there just in 1 year, so I would argue that they already have a strong alliance with FIU. However, I think that we can strengthen our partnerships with think tanks, not only to publicize the research that FIU produces, but also when someone thinks about Latin America, we want them to think about FIU. We want them to go to the researchers here and know us as the school that has the largest amount of researchers and students who are from the region and focus on the region, because Miami is the capital of Latin America. And yeah. Questions? Bueno.
What do you think are ways that the U.S. can mitigate the already imposing Chinese, like they're already in the region, so, and I know that China actually had some kind of agreement with Argentina to use some of their lands in order to do research on in the country. So what do you think the U.S. can do in order to one up them, I guess you can say?
I think that one thing the United States can do is just create a greater stance within Latin America. Joe Biden has not visited one Latin American country within his presidential term, but Xi Jinping has made repeated visits to the continent. China just invested their first yuan in Argentina in late August. And if you go to Buenos Aires, literally on every corner, you see a Chinese bank. People in Argentina generally dislike Americans and have a bad stance towards Americans. I think that if we just increase our presence through soft diplomacy and maybe tourism, study abroad, things like that, we can just increase our presence and our influence in the region without having to overthrow governments and stuff like that. Yeah.
There's a long documented history of the United States going into Latin American countries and causing and wreaking total havoc on local economies. And we're seeing that now with a rise of gentrification. So how do you suggest that the United States set a friendly presence in Latin America without causing harm that American tourism tends to cause to low-income countries?
I actually think that's more of an American viewpoint, that American tourism causes harm to communities in Latin America. I think if you actually visit Latin America, go to Latin America, you would see that people, especially in primate cities where most of the tourism is focused towards, they actually enjoy and welcome tourists into their cities, because more foreign dollars means that there's more dollars circulating throughout their communities. They have more income, and therefore they have more food to feed their families on the table. I think that's a very Americanized viewpoint of that that American tourism calls this gentrification in Latin America. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella. Please, one more round of applause for all the Hamilton Scholars. Next up, I'd like to turn it over to our Associate VP of Governmental Relations, Carlos Becerra.
And I am the last act, don't worry. I think it's official tonight. This cohort has obviously raised the bar. I think we've been at this a few years now, but I think what we saw distilled in these presentations and what we know happened behind the scenes was very important. So congratulations again to you. What you didn't see in these presentations, and it's touching to now reflect on what each and every one of you have done as late as even this afternoon and this morning, a lot of research connecting to one of our faculty members, which, as we all experience, could be easy, could be complex, unreturned emails, unreturned phone calls. You know, some get it, some don't, some had to be cajoled. And we saw today, I want to give Nessa a shout out. You were able to get one of our researchers that was a little foreign to the world of a Hill and advocacy, and why are you calling me? What's the deal? You're connecting with a think tank that's focused on these issues, a Hill staffer, and that's the job of an advocate, to connect those dots. And let's see where it goes. All of these presentations, I think it's obvious, has a what's next to a person. The semester may be ending. Your Honors College class, additional shout out to the Honors College, may be ending, but I'm excited the fact that you all want to take this to a next level, and whether it's an event or a program. Each and every one of them involved trying to get the right key players in a room or in this room or get a meeting with the key players. That's easier said than done sometimes. So, but I congratulate you. And this is the first semester we also incorporated that. You know what? Nicole, me, and the team spend every week planning events, and that's part of the job. That's part of what we do in Washington, D.C., and this cohort to a person was able to do that. It's now my honor to give thanks. I'm going to start with the employers and the supervisors are here. Washington International Trade, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz's team. You're used to hearing my thanks for all the success of your boss and the delegation and Congresswoman Wilson's team. But today we're here to thank you for taking our students in and giving these amazing experiences. So thank you. Charlene, the weekly sessions of giving, you know, they might get the FIU. They might get the FIU info from me, but the dosage of reality that she provided every week in this is how Washington really works. This is how the Hill works. This is how you get things done. This is how campaigns work. So thank you. Ruth Hamilton, as our provost mentioned, we wouldn't have this program without the support of Ruth Hamilton. Student government leaders in the room, thank you, thank you, thank you. The funding that we're able to utilize to have programmings and support fly-ins like this are because of student government. So there's that. And then Provost Behar. This is the first full year that we've now been able to really kick the tires, if you will, of our amazing new center. But I think we saw tonight of why it is we're doing this, why our provost, why our president, why our board of trustees believe in what we're doing. And we saw it today when we visited Health and Human Services, giving you that front door to how the sausage gets made and these policy issues and challenging, scary ones that, you know, will not be solved overnight. But our role in this, and I thank you, because Dr. Behar has been a staunch supporter of what we do, our Vice President for Strategic Communications, Governmental and External Affairs, our President, so many other Vice Presidents that we, you know, take us too long to mention, and our Deans. This is really a whole of team effort, so I want to thank them all. I want to thank Frank Gamez for really helping mentor you throughout this semester. And of course our team, Michelle Trochet is here running operations in the back room. Nicole Regalado, Brandon, the meal was amazing, the logistics, beautiful. We got Kiara on social media, there you go. Daniel's not here tonight, but Daniel's been part of capturing a lot of your stories. I think you're going to see a lot of your video content and this program tonight repackaged. So thank you once again. And I think that's it. Very good. Dr. Behar, any final comments? Put you on the spot.
It's okay. It's okay to be put on the spot. So thank you all. It takes a lot of courage, certainly resiliency, and you're showing that at such astounding levels. As Carlos said, kick the tires, but I think we're so proud of the work that you do, and it is certainly work that is not alone. It is about partnership. It's not just about a university. It's not just about a congressional delegation. It's not just about corporate partners or not-for-profit partners. It's about everyone coming together to make and help to solve these complex problems. And where there are not complex problems, create, right? Fascinating and exciting and exhilarating opportunities for us, for the future, et cetera. And I do want to just close with thanking one of the most stalwart champions of FIU in DC, our very own, Carlos Becerra, who stood, in your shoes and had experiences just a few years ago, and realized that he could devote his time, talent, and treasure to really building on the experiential opportunities that are so critical for development. So thank you, sir, for continuing to hold this flag and carry it on behalf of the university and the South Florida community.
Thank you all.
Good evening.
Thank you. You're dismissed.